Toma had never been to the animal shelter before. He was a quiet man who liked calm places, gardens, and long walks near the river. But today something made him feel drawn to the shelter. Maybe it was the bright morning sun or the feeling that today could change his life. The shelter was not very big. It had rows of kennels, some with barking dogs, others with animals sleeping quietly. Volunteers walked around, cleaning cages and feeding the animals. Toma entered slowly, his eyes moving from one kennel to another. Most of the dogs wagged their tails, happy to see someone. But one kennel caught his attention. Inside, there was a huge dog. His fur was black with streaks of brown, his eyes sharp, and his body strong and tense. He was standing in the corner, watching Toma silently. The moment Toma looked at him, he felt a strange pull in his chest. "Careful," a shelter worker said from a distance. "That one is dangerous. He has scared almost everyone who has come here." "His name is Bruno," Toma nodded. He had heard stories about dangerous dogs before. People often said they were violent or could not be trained. But there was something in Bruno's eyes that did not seem angry. There was a depth. It's almost like he was waiting for someone who could understand him. "I think I want to meet him," Toma said calmly. The worker frowned. "I do not recommend it. Bruno has bitten before. He does not like strangers. Most people just leave him alone." Toma smiled slightly. "I know, but I feel he needs someone like me. I want to try." The worker looked unsure but opened the kennel door slowly. Bruno stepped back, growling softly, his teeth just slightly showing. He was careful, tense, but not attacking. Toma crouched down at a safe distance, keeping his hands open. "Hey Bruno," he said gently. "My name is Toma. I'm not here to hurt you." Bruno tilted his head. His ears moved slightly. He sniffed the air, but did not come closer. Toma stayed calm. He did not try to touch him or make sudden movements. Hours could have passed in those moments, yet it only felt like minutes, the worker finally said. "I don't think he will bite you, but you have to promise to be careful. Most people give up too soon." "I will be patient." The next day, Toma returned to the shelter. This time he brought a few treats, toys, and a blanket. He wanted Bruno to feel comfortable. When Bruno saw him, he growled, but it was quieter this time. Toma spoke softly, offering a treat on the ground. Bruno sniffed it, then slowly ate it. It was a small victory, but Toma smiled. He had felt many victories in his life, but this one felt special. It was not about winning. It was about trust. By the end of the week, Toma made a decision. He wanted to take Bruno home. The worker was surprised. "Are you sure? He is very dangerous. People will judge you for taking him." "I am sure," Toma said. "Everyone deserves a chance. Bruno deserves a chance." The paperwork was completed, and Bruno was put on a leash. As they walked to Toma's car, Bruno stiffened at every sound, every moving shadow. He growled at a passing car and barked at a crow flying above. Toma stayed calm. He talked to him softly, guiding him gently. The car ride was difficult. Bruno sat in the back, tense, growling at the slightest noise. Toma did not get frustrated. He whispered words of encouragement, telling Bruno he was safe. For hours, Bruno did not relax. But Toma felt a connection growing when they reached Toma's house. Bruno sniffed the garden, walked slowly around the yard, and finally stopped near the fence. Toma opened the door and invited him inside. Bruno hesitated, looking at the furniture, the walls, and the new smells. Inside, Toma gave him water and a small meal. Bruno ate quietly but kept one eye on Toma the whole time. It was clear that he was wary. But he also wanted to understand this new human who had chosen him. The first night was the hardest. Bruno would not sleep in the bed, nor on the blanket Toma prepared for him. He circled the room, growling at the smallest sounds. The wind outside. A tree branch tapping the window, even a small mouse that ran past the kitchen. Toma stayed awake with him. He spoke softly, never raising his voice. Slowly, Bruno's growling lessened. By morning, he had curled up in a corner watching Toma sleep. It was not complete trust yet, but it was the start. The days passed, and Toma and Bruno began a routine. Morning walks, evening meals, and quiet time together. Bruno was still unpredictable. Sometimes he would snap at shadows, sometimes he would run around wildly. But he also showed signs of intelligence. He would sit and wait when Toma asked, follow simple commands, and even nudge Toma when something seemed wrong in the house. One afternoon, while Toma was reading in the living room, Bruno suddenly barked and ran to the window. Toma looked outside but saw nothing unusual. Bruno kept barking, his body tense, his eyes fixed on the forest behind the house. Curious, Toma grabbed his coat and followed Bruno outside. They walked to the edge of the forest. Bruno sniffed the air and growled at something Toma could not see. Then he ran deeper into the trees, barking urgently. Toma ran after him. After a few minutes, they reached a small clearing. There, a baby deer had fallen into a shallow ditch. Its leg was stuck, and it was struggling. Bruno approached carefully, nudged the deer gently, and Toma quickly lifted it out. Toma looked at Bruno with amazement. "You saved it," he said. Bruno wagged his tail slightly, his eyes calm now. Toma realized that Bruno's strength and alertness could be used for good. He was not just dangerous. He was capable of heroism. Word about Bruno began to spread in the town. Neighbors whispered about the dangerous dog that Toma had taken home. Some were afraid, others curious. Children would peek through the fence, hoping to see him. Bruno, however, ignored most people. He only followed Toma and watched over him carefully. Toma noticed a change in himself too. He had always been a quiet man, content with simple life, but caring for Bruno brought new energy. He spent more time outdoors, exploring the forest, observing nature, and learning about animals. He realized that having Bruno was not just about training a dog. It was about discovering patience, courage, and connection. One evening, as the sun was setting, Toma sat on the porch while Bruno lay beside him. The sky was painted with orange and pink colors. Bruno's head rested on Toma's lap. For the first time, Toma felt that Bruno trusted him completely. He stroked Bruno's fur gently. "You are not dangerous," Toma said softly. "You are special." Bruno looked up at him, almost as if he understood. In that moment, Toma realized that the journey with Bruno had only just begun. There was something unique about this dog, something beyond ordinary understanding. That night, Toma went to bed feeling a mix of excitement and curiosity. He wondered about the strange intelligence and awareness he had seen in Bruno. He wondered if one day the town would understand the truth about him. But more than anything, he felt grateful. Bruno had chosen to trust him, and Toma had chosen to believe in him. Little did Toma know. The events of the coming days would reveal that Bruno was far more extraordinary than anyone could have imagined. His so-called dangerous nature was just the beginning of a story that would change Toma, the town, and perhaps even the world. Bruno, the most dangerous dog in the shelter, was about to show that appearances could be deceiving. His loyalty, courage, and intelligence would prove that sometimes. What seems frightening is actually something remarkable. The days after Bruno arrived at Toma's house were quiet, yet full of small surprises. Bruno was no longer just a dangerous dog. He was learning to trust, and Toma was learning to understand him. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. One morning, Toma decided to take Bruno on a longer walk than usual. They headed toward the forest at the edge of town, a place Toma rarely visited. The forest was calm, filled with the scent of pine and damp soil. Birds chirped in the branches, and the wind whispered through the leaves. Bruno walked beside Toma, alert but calm, his eyes scanning the surroundings with unusual awareness. After a while, Toma noticed something strange. A soft glow appeared above the trees in the distance. At first, he thought it was sunlight reflecting off the morning mist. But the glow moved slowly and steadily, unlike anything natural. Toma stopped and stared. Bruno immediately stiffened. His ears rose, his tail straightened, and he growled quietly, low and tense. "What is it, Bruno?" Toma asked, unsure himself. The dog did not bark aggressively. Instead, he stared, fixed, almost as if trying to understand. Then, without warning, Bruno dashed toward the forest. Toma ran after him, unsure of what he would find. Deeper in the trees, Toma saw the glow again. This time, it was clearer. Strange metallic shapes hovered just above the treetops. They were unlike any aircraft Toma had seen. Smooth, shiny, and glowing faintly, they moved silently, scanning the forest below. Toma froze, his heart racing. Bruno stood beside him, growling and watching intently. Toma realized that Bruno was not afraid. He was alert, cautious, and protective. It was as if he could sense what Toma could not. The shapes moved further away after a few minutes, vanishing into the sky. Toma had never seen anything like it. He felt a mixture of fear and wonder. Over the next few days, Toma noticed more unusual behavior from Bruno. The dog seemed to understand much more than a normal dog should. He would bark at the right moment to warn Toma about small accidents. When Toma prepared tea, Bruno would sit quietly until Toma finished pouring. If a drawer fell or a glass teetered on the edge of the table, Bruno nudged it away just in time. One evening, Toma was reading in the living room when Bruno suddenly stood, ears raised, and ran to the door. Toma followed, curious and cautious. Bruno led him into the yard and toward the forest again. This time, Toma saw a small, injured rabbit, its leg trapped under a fallen branch. Bruno carefully stepped around the rabbit, nudging the branch with his nose. Toma lifted it gently, thanking Bruno. "You are amazing," Toma said, scratching behind Bruno's ears. Bruno wagged his tail and looked at him with intelligent eyes, most proud. Word of Bruno's unusual intelligence spread quietly in the town. Some neighbors were curious, some were cautious. Children would try to play with him, and Bruno allowed gentle pats, but he stayed alert, always returning to Toma's side. One night, a storm arrived. The wind blew fiercely, and rain pounded the roof. Bruno refused to stay inside. He barked and ran to the edge of the yard, staring toward the forest. Toma grabbed a flashlight and followed him. The rain soaked them both, but Bruno ran steadily, guiding Toma through the muddy paths. In a small clearing, Toma saw it. The earth was disturbed, as if something had landed there recently. Small glowing markings were on the ground, pulsing faintly. Toma knelt to inspect them. They were unlike anything natural. Before he could think further, Bruno barked sharply, low and warning. Suddenly, a shadow moved above the trees. Toma looked up. It was another glowing object moving slowly and deliberately. It hovered above the clearing, scanning the area. Toma froze, realizing they were being watched. Bruno growled and stood protectively in front of Toma. Toma realized that Bruno's reactions were more than instinct. The dog could sense danger before humans could understand patterns and act decisively. He seemed to know exactly when to warn Toma, when to stay calm, and when to protect. The following day, Toma decided to test Bruno's abilities further. He hid a small ball behind a tree and asked Bruno to find it. Bruno sniffed the air, paused, and ran directly to the spot, retrieving the ball. Toma repeated this with other objects, including a small bag, a set of keys, and even a notebook. Bruno never failed. His ability to locate objects, sense movement, and respond to commands without seeing or hearing them amazed Toma. Over the next week, Bruno's skills became even more remarkable. He could detect when someone approached the house from a distance, even when the person was hidden behind walls or fences. He seemed to sense emotions too, calming Toma when he was worried, or alerting him when danger was near. One afternoon, Toma took Bruno to a nearby stream. Bruno ran ahead, sniffing the banks carefully. Toma noticed a family of ducks struggling to escape the strong current. Without hesitation, Bruno jumped into the shallow water and guided the ducklings to safety. Toma watched in awe. This was not normal dog behavior. Bruno understood the situation, acted decisively, and saved the animals. That evening, Toma sat on the porch with Bruno. The sky was painted in deep orange and purple hues. Bruno rested his head on Toma's lap. "You are no ordinary dog, Bruno," Toma said softly. "There is something special about you." Bruno looked up at him, his eyes reflecting the fading sunlight. Toma felt a strange sense of wonder. The dog's abilities were beyond ordinary. It was as if he had knowledge, intelligence, awareness that humans could not explain. Over the next few days, Toma began documenting Bruno's behavior. He made notes about the objects Bruno could find, the animals he helped, and the unusual alerts he gave. Each entry filled him with amazement. Bruno was proving that the bond between human and animal could be extraordinary, revealing hidden potential that no one expected. Then, one evening, something truly remarkable happened. Toma and Bruno were walking near the forest when they heard a soft hum in the distance. Bruno froze, ears raised. The hum grew louder, and small lights appeared in the sky. Bruno barked and ran toward a clearing. Toma followed, heart pounding. There, hovering silently above the trees, were several glowing objects. They were the same as before, smooth, metallic, and moving in ways no airplane could. Bruno barked and growled, circling Toma protectively. Then, something strange occurred. The objects paused, almost as if they recognized Bruno. The glow around them shifted, pulsing gently. Bruno stood firm, not aggressive, but alert and commanding. Toma watched in disbelief. He realized that Bruno had a connection to these objects, or at least could sense them in ways humans could not. Perhaps his intelligence was not just extraordinary, it might be something beyond Earth, something unknown. That night, Toma could not sleep. He watched Bruno sleep in the corner, his breathing steady but alert. Toma felt a mixture of pride, curiosity, and concern. Bruno's abilities were remarkable, but they were also mysterious. There were questions Toma did not have answers for. Where did Bruno's intelligence come from? Why could he sense danger, objects, and even the glowing objects in the sky? Toma knew one thing for certain. Bruno was no longer just a dangerous dog. He was a protector, a guide, and perhaps something more. And Toma felt honored to be the one Bruno trusted, the one who could help him navigate a world that seemed larger and stranger than ever before. The bond between them was growing stronger each day. Bruno followed Toma wherever he went, alert and careful. The town still whispered about the dangerous dog, but Toma knew the truth. Bruno was a hero in disguise, being of extraordinary skill and understanding. Little did Toma know, the events unfolding in the forest and the presence of the glowing objects were only the beginning. Bruno's extraordinary abilities would soon lead them both into a world of mystery, danger, and adventure. A world where the line between ordinary and extraordinary blurred, and where humanity's courage and compassion would be tested. As Toma sat on the porch that night, stroking Bruno's fur, he whispered softly, "Whatever comes next, we will face it together." Bruno leaned closer, as if understanding every word. The most dangerous dog in the shelter was no longer unwanted or feared. He was ready to reveal the truth of his extraordinary nature, and Toma would be there to witness it. The town had been quiet for weeks, but Toma felt a growing tension in the air. Bruno had become more alert than ever. Every morning he would patrol the yard, sniffing the air, listening to the smallest sounds. Toma watched him with a mix of pride and concern. He knew something was coming, something beyond ordinary. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Toma decided to take Bruno on a walk near the forest. The forest had become familiar to them, yet it still held secrets. Bruno led the way, moving with purpose, ears upright, tail stiff. He paused at the edge of a clearing, growling softly. Toma looked where Bruno was staring. There in the distance were strange shapes, hovering above the treetops. They glowed faintly and moved with precision, scanning the forest. Toma's heart pounded. He had seen similar objects before, but now they seemed closer, larger, and more deliberate. Bruno barked sharply and ran toward the clearing. Toma ran after him, unsure what he would find. When they reached the center, Toma froze. On the ground were strange tracks, not made by any animal he knew. They were wide, smooth, and glowed faintly. The air around them hummed softly like electricity. Bruno sniffed the tracks, growling low. He nudged Toma back, away from the center, as if warning him not to touch anything. Toma realized that Bruno understood the danger better than he did. The dog was not just sensing movement, he was analyzing it. preparing for something. Suddenly, a loud noise broke the silence. The glowing shapes moved faster, descending toward the clearing. Bruno barked, circling Toma protectively. Toma held his ground, realizing that they were facing something extraordinary. The shapes hovered silently, scanning the area, their glow intensifying. Then, without warning, a small panel opened on one of the objects. Inside were beings unlike anything Toma had ever imagined. They were humanoid in shape, but translucent, glowing faintly with delicate features and large eyes. They did not speak in words, but communicated through soft vibrations and light patterns. Toma stepped back, unsure what to do. Bruno stood firm, growling, his body tense and ready. The beings seemed to recognize Bruno. Their light pulsed gently, almost as if they were studying him. Toma realized that Bruno's extraordinary abilities were connected to these beings in ways he could not yet understand. Over the next few days, Toma tried to make sense of what he had seen. The glowing objects appeared at different locations in the forest. Bruno would always sense them first, growling or barking to alert Toma. Sometimes, Bruno would run ahead and return moments later, guiding Toma safely around the objects. One afternoon, Toma and Bruno discovered a hidden clearing deep in the forest. The ground was covered with strange symbols that glowed faintly in the sunlight. Bruno sniffed each symbol carefully, growling low when he reached the edge. Toma studied the symbols but could not understand them. They were not letters or numbers. They seemed alive, pulsing with energy. Bruno's behavior became even more extraordinary. He would stop suddenly, stare at the sky, and bark in patterns. Toma realized that Bruno was communicating, trying to understand the beings and their intentions. It was as if Bruno had a knowledge that went beyond instinct. He was reasoning, analyzing, and acting with purpose. That night, Toma stayed awake, watching Bruno sleep. The dog's ears twitched constantly, and his eyes opened briefly, scanning the darkness. Toma realized that Bruno's senses were far beyond human capabilities. He could detect movement, energy, and even intentions. Bruno was not just a protector. He was a guide through an unfamiliar and dangerous world. The following morning, Toma took Bruno to the forest again. This time, the glowing objects appeared sooner, hovering above the trees in a precise formation. Bruno barked and ran toward them, circling Toma protectively. Suddenly, a small drone-like device detached from one of the objects and moved toward them. Toma froze, unsure what it would do. Bruno growled, crouched, and leaped in front of Toma. The device stopped just inches away from Bruno, scanning him with a soft light. Bruno remained calm but alert, growling low and moving his body in careful, calculated motions. Then, the device retreated and rejoined the main objects. Toma realized that Bruno's presence had changed the behavior of the beings. They were observing him, but they seemed cautious, almost respectful of Bruno. It was clear that Bruno was extraordinary, and the beings recognized it. Over the next week, Toma trained Bruno further. He noticed that Bruno could follow complex commands without seeing the object or hearing the instruction. Bruno could sense hidden paths, detect energy patterns, and even anticipate small movements. Toma realized that Bruno's intelligence and abilities were far beyond normal dogs, and possibly beyond normal animals altogether. One afternoon, as they walked near the forest edge, Toma noticed something unusual. A small group of humans had ventured too close to the glowing objects. They were unaware of the danger and were about to step into the clearing with strange symbols. Bruno barked urgently, running between Toma and the humans, guiding them away from the area. Toma was amazed. Bruno not only protected him, but also cared for others, understanding the potential danger and acting decisively to prevent harm. Toma realized that Bruno's abilities were not just for survival, they were for the protection of life, a responsibility he took seriously. That evening, Toma and Bruno returned home. Bruno lay near the window, watching the forest. Toma studied him, feeling a mix of awe and curiosity. He wondered how a dog could possess such intelligence and awareness. He wondered what connection Bruno had with the glowing objects and the beings. Inside, the town remained unaware of the events in the forest. People still whispered about Bruno, calling him dangerous. But Toma knew the truth. Bruno was a hero, capable of extraordinary feats. The town had yet to see his full potential. Days later, Bruno led Toma to a deeper part of the forest. There, they discovered a small device half buried in the soil. It pulsed with soft light and emitted a faint hum. Bruno sniffed it carefully, growling low. Toma approached slowly, examining the device. It was unlike anything he had seen. Smooth, metallic, and glowing faintly, it seemed alive. Bruno nudged it gently with his nose, then stepped back. Toma realized that Bruno knew how to handle it safely. The dog's intelligence was guiding him, protecting both of them from unknown danger. Toma felt a deep respect for Bruno. He was no longer just a dog. He was a partner, a guide, and a protector. That night, Toma could not sleep. He thought about the glowing objects, the symbols, the device, and Bruno's extraordinary abilities. He realized that the world was larger and stranger than he had ever imagined. Bruno was a key to understanding it, and together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The following morning, Toma took Bruno on another walk. The glowing objects appeared again, hovering above the trees. Bruno barked and ran toward them, circling Toma protectively. The objects paused, then moved closer, revealing the humanoid beings once more. They communicated with soft pulses of light. Bruno responded with barks and movements that seemed deliberate, almost like a conversation. Toma watched in awe. Bruno was not just sensing the beings. He was interacting with them. The dog's intelligence and awareness allowed him to understand and respond in ways that humans could not. Toma realized that Bruno's abilities were extraordinary, that he might hold the key to understanding the mysterious visitors. As the sun set, Toma and Bruno returned home. Bruno lay near the window, watching the forest with alert eyes. Toma sat beside him, stroking his fur gently. "You are amazing, Bruno," he said softly. "Whatever comes next, we will face it together." Bruno leaned closer, as if understanding every word. He was no longer just a dangerous dog from the shelter. He was a hero, a protector, and a guide in a world filled with mystery and unknown dangers. Toma knew that the events in the forest were only the beginning. The glowing objects, the humanoid beings, and the strange devices were signs of a larger threat, one that required courage, intelligence, and trust. And Bruno, the extraordinary dog, would lead the way. The bond between them had grown stronger than ever. Bruno's loyalty, intelligence, and awareness were unmatched. Toma realized that sometimes the most extraordinary heroes come in unexpected forms. Sometimes the most dangerous appearances hide the greatest courage. As night fell, the forest hummed softly with energy. Bruno lay alert, ready for whatever might come. Toma knew that the days ahead would test them both, but he also knew that with Bruno by his side, he was ready. The most dangerous dog in the shelter had revealed his true nature, and the world would never be the same again. The town remained unaware of the strange events in the forest, but Toma could feel the tension building. Bruno had become more alert than ever. Every rustle in the trees, every flicker of light, every unusual sound drew his attention. Toma knew that the glowing objects and the mysterious beings were preparing for something. It was only a matter of time before their presence became more than an observation. One morning, Toma decided to take Bruno on a walk earlier than usual. The forest was quiet, the air crisp and fresh. Bruno moved with precision, scanning the surroundings as if he could see more than just the trees. Toma followed, keeping pace with the extraordinary dog. Suddenly Bruno stopped and barked sharply. Toma looked up and saw them three glowing objects hovering low above the clearing. They moved slowly, scanning the area, as if searching for something. Bruno growled, circling Toma protectively. Toma's heart raced. He realized that these beings were no longer just observers. They were acting with purpose. Bruno ran ahead, leading Toma along a hidden path he had discovered earlier. They reached a small hill overlooking the clearing. From there, Toma could see a group of robotic drones emerging from the glowing objects. The drones moved quickly, scanning the forest floor and the edge of the town. Toma realized with alarm that the beings were planning to capture or study something, possibly the town itself or its animals. Bruno barked urgently, running down the hill. Toma followed, understanding that they needed to act fast. The dog led him through the forest, avoiding the drones and guiding him toward a safe vantage point. Toma marveled at Bruno's intelligence. The dog was not just protecting him. He was thinking strategically, predicting the movements of the drones and finding safe paths. From their hiding spot, Toma could see the drones advancing toward the town. They moved with precision, but their movements were mechanical and predictable. Toma realized that he and Bruno had an advantage. The beings controlling the drones might be advanced, but they had not accounted for human intuition and Bruno's extraordinary abilities. Toma whispered to Bruno, "We have to stop them, or at least warn the town." Bruno barked in response, as if agreeing. Together, they moved swiftly, using the forest paths Bruno had memorized. They reached the edge of town just as the first drone entered the streets. Toma felt a surge of fear and determination. He had to protect his home, and Bruno was ready to help. Bruno ran ahead, intercepting the drones. He moved with incredible speed and agility, dodging their sensors and knocking them off balance. Toma followed, using tools and objects he found along the way to disable the drones. Together, they created a small barrier, preventing the drones from advancing further into the town. The townspeople began to notice the unusual activity. Some ran outside, curious and frightened. Toma shouted to them, "Stay inside. It's dangerous." Most of the people obeyed, but a few brave or curious souls watched from a distance. They saw Bruno in action, moving with speed and precision, protecting Toma and guiding the drones away from homes. Toma realized that Bruno's actions were changing the perception of the townspeople. The dog they had feared as dangerous was now a hero. Children who had once been afraid ran to the windows, cheering for him. Adults whispered in amazement. Recognizing the courage and intelligence of the extraordinary dog, the drones retreated temporarily, regrouping near the forest edge. Toma knew this was only a pause. The beings controlling them were intelligent, and they would not give up easily. He needed a plan to protect the town and uncover the truth behind their presence. That evening, Tomoye and Bruno returned to the forest. They studied the glowing objects from a safe distance. The beings communicated with light pulses, moving with grace and precision. Bruno observed them carefully, barking and moving in patterns that seemed deliberate. Toma realized that Bruno was trying to communicate with them, or at least understand their intentions. Toma knew he could not face these beings alone. He needed allies, and the townspeople were beginning to trust. Bruno, he decided to gather a few of the local volunteers who were brave and willing to help. Together, they could work to protect the town and observe the strange beings more closely. Over the next few days, Toma trained the volunteers, showing them how to stay safe and work with Bruno. The dog became the central figure in their strategy, guiding movements, detecting danger, and alerting them to unusual activity. The volunteers quickly realized that Bruno was not just a pet. He was a leader, a protector, and a symbol of courage. One night, the glowing objects returned, this time moving closer to the town. Bruno barked urgently, running ahead to intercept them. Toma and the volunteers followed, using paths through the forest to avoid detection. The drones emerged again, moving quickly toward the town. Bruno acted with remarkable skill. He dodged the drones, using his strength to knock some off balance and guiding others away from populated areas. The volunteers followed his lead, disabling drones carefully without causing harm. The townspeople watched from a safe distance, amazed at the coordination and bravery of the dog and his human allies. As the night progressed, Toma realized something extraordinary. The beings were not hostile in the way they intended. They were curious, studying patterns and reactions, but they had not fully understood human courage, loyalty, and cooperation. Bruno's actions were showing them a side of humanity they had not expected, a side that combined intelligence, bravery, and empathy. The next morning, the town gathered to celebrate the bravery of Bruno and Toma's volunteers. Children hugged the dog. Adults shook hands with Toma. and even the shelter workers who had once warned him about Bruno praised his courage. The dangerous dog was now a hero, proving that appearances could be deceiving and that true strength came from courage and compassion. Bruno's abilities continued to amaze Toma. He could detect the smallest changes in the environment, anticipate movements, and respond with precision. Toma realized that Bruno's intelligence and awareness were not just extraordinary, they were a gift. A gift that could protect the town, guide humans, and reveal the truth behind the mysterious beings. One afternoon, Toma took Bruno to the forest again. The glowing objects appeared above the trees, hovering silently. Bruno barked, running toward them. But this time, something unexpected happened. One of the objects descended slowly, its light pulsing gently. The humanoid being emerged, hovering just above the ground. Toma held his breath. Bruno growled softly, standing protectively in front of him. The being's light pulsed, and Toma felt a strange calm. It was as if the being was communicating without words, reaching out through energy and intention. Bruno responded with careful movements, barking and circling, creating a dialogue that Toma could not fully understand. After a few minutes, the being retreated, returning to the glowing object. Toma realized that Bruno had communicated with them successfully. The dog's intelligence, courage, awareness had bridged the gap between humans and beings far beyond Earth. That night, Toma sat on the porch with Bruno, watching the stars. The town was safe, for now. The glowing objects had retreated, and the drones were gone. Toma stroked Bruno's fur gently, feeling pride and gratitude. "You are more than just a dog, Bruno," he said softly. "You are a hero, a protector, and a guide. And together we can face whatever comes next." Bruno leaned closer, his eyes reflecting the faint light of the stars. Toma knew that the days ahead would bring more challenges, more mysteries, and more dangers. But with Bruno by his side, he felt ready. The most dangerous dog in the shelter had shown the town the true meaning of courage, loyalty, and the extraordinary potential of humanity as the night deepened. Toma realized that Bruno's abilities were not just a gift, they were a responsibility. They had to protect the town, guide humans, and reveal the truth behind the mysterious beings. And Bruno, the extraordinary dog, was ready for the challenge. The bond between them had grown stronger than ever. Bruno's loyalty, intelligence, and awareness were unmatched. Toma knew that, together, they could face any threat, uncover any mystery, and protect the people and animals they cared about. The glowing objects would return. The unknown challenges would come, but Toma and Bruno were ready. Humanity had shown its strength, not just in courage, but in trust, compassion, and the extraordinary connection between a man and his dog and Bruno. The dog, once feared as dangerous, had become the symbol of hope, bravery, and the incredible potential hidden within the most unexpected heroes. The morning sun rose over the town, casting warm light across the streets and rooftops. Toma woke early, as usual, and saw Bruno sitting at the window, alert and watchful. The past days had been full of surprises, dangers, and discoveries. But today, Toma had a feeling that something extraordinary was about to happen. Bruno barked softly, then ran to the door, looking back at Toma. It was a clear signal. It was time to go. Toma grabbed his coat, and together they headed toward the forest. The path was familiar now, but there was a tension in the air, quiet energy that made Toma's heart race. As they approached the clearing, the glowing objects appeared once more. This time, they moved deliberately, forming a circle above the forest floor. The air hummed with energy, and a faint light spread across the trees. Bruno stopped, growling low, his body tense but calm. Toma felt a mix of fear and anticipation. Suddenly, one of the humanoid beings emerged from the light. Its form was delicate, glowing softly, and its eyes focused on Bruno. The dog stepped forward cautiously, tail straight, ears raised. The being pulsed with light in patterns that Toma could barely understand. But somehow he felt its intention. It wanted to communicate. Bruno barked and moved in a specific pattern, circling the being, pausing, and then approaching it carefully. Toma watched in awe. The dog was not just reacting instinctively, he was interacting with the being, forming a connection that crossed the boundaries between species and even worlds. The being pulsed brighter. The soft sound filled the clearing. It was not words, but Toma could sense meaning in it. The being explained in its own way that Bruno had been part of an experiment long ago. He was no ordinary dog. The beings had created him to observe and interact with humans, to test intelligence, loyalty, and courage. But Bruno had chosen a different path. Toma's eyes widened. "You mean?" Bruno decided for himself. He asked, though he knew the being could not hear him in human language. Bruno barked once, sharply, as if confirming Toma's thought. The being's light pulsed, acknowledging the truth. Bruno's so-called dangerous nature had been a misunderstanding. His intelligence, strength, and awareness were gifts, but his loyalty and compassion had been his own choice. He had chosen to protect, to guide, and to care. The being extended a glowing limb toward Bruno. The dog approached, cautious but unafraid. As they touched, a gentle warmth spread through Bruno's body, and Toma noticed something incredible. Bruno's fur seemed to shimmer with faint light. It was as if the being was enhancing or acknowledging his extraordinary nature. Toma knelt beside Bruno, feeling a mix of pride, wonder, and love. "You've always been amazing," he whispered. "But now, the world can see what I've known all along." The beings pulsed their light, communicating gratitude. Bruno had shown them something they had not expected: the courage, loyalty, and compassion of a being that had the mind of their creation but the heart of humanity. Toma realized that Bruno had not only protected the town, but had also demonstrated the extraordinary potential within humans and animals alike. Suddenly, the forest trembled as another group of drones approached. These drones were more advanced, moving faster and scanning the area with intense light. Bruno barked sharply, stepping in front of Toma. The dog's body was tense, but his movements were precise, calculated, and confident. Toma followed Bruno's lead. The dog ran ahead, using his speed and intelligence to intercept the drones. He dodged their sensors, knocked some off balance, and guided Toma to a safe spot. Toma realized that Bruno's actions were no longer just instinct. They were strategy, coordination, and leadership. The humanoid beings observed silently, their light pulsing rapidly. They did not intervene. Bruno was showing them the true meaning of bravery and intelligence. Toma's admiration for the dog grew with every passing second. Bruno was not just a protector, he was a teacher, showing both humans and beings from beyond the stars what courage and loyalty could accomplish. After the drones retreated, the beings approached Toma and pulsed their light softly. For the first time, Toma felt a direct understanding. The beings explained that Bruno's behavior had exceeded their expectations. He had proven that intelligence alone was not enough. Compassion, courage, and the choice to protect others were what made a being truly extraordinary. Bruno barked softly, nudging Toma's hand. It was as if he wanted Toma to understand the message too. The dog had not only saved the town, but had also bridged the gap between worlds. His actions were a testament to the strength of loyalty and love. The beings then pulsed their light one final time and ascended into the sky. The drones followed, and the forest fell silent. Bruno stood in the clearing, chest rising and falling, ears alert. Toma approached and hugged him, feeling the warmth of his extraordinary companion. "You did it, Bruno," Toma said softly. "You showed everyone what true courage is." Bruno leaned against Toma, tail wagging gently. He had been the most dangerous dog in the shelter. But now he was the greatest hero the town had ever known. The townspeople began to gather near the forest edge. They had seen the strange lights and the drones, and they were amazed by what had happened. Children ran to Bruno, hugging him and calling him a hero. Adults looked at Toma with admiration, realizing that the dog they had feared was a protector, a friend, and a guide. Toma smiled. "Bruno is not dangerous," he told them. "He is extraordinary. He has chosen to protect us, to guide us, and to show us what courage and loyalty truly mean." The town celebrated Bruno's bravery. People brought treats, toys, and blankets to honor him. Children drew pictures of Bruno and the glowing beings, telling stories of his courage. Toma watched, feeling a deep sense of pride. Bruno had not only saved the town, but had also taught everyone a lesson about trust, courage, and understanding. Days passed, and life returned to a peaceful rhythm. Bruno continued his patrols, always alert, always watching. Toma trained him, guided him, and learned from him. The bond between them had grown stronger than ever. Bruno's intelligence, courage, and awareness were unmatched, and Toma felt honored to be his companion. One afternoon, Toma took Bruno to the forest again, not out of fear, but out of curiosity. The glowing objects did not appear this time, but the forest seemed alive in a new way. Bruno sniffed the air, alert but calm. Toma realized that their journey was not just about danger, it was about discovery. Bruno led him to a small clearing where the earth glowed faintly, a reminder of the being's presence. Toma knelt, placing his hand on the ground. "We may never understand everything," he said softly, "but we know what matters. Loyalty, courage, and love." Bruno nudged his hand gently, as if agreeing. That evening, Toma sat on the porch, watching Bruno play with the children in the yard. The town was safe, the beings had left, and the extraordinary dog had revealed the truth about himself. Toma realized that sometimes what appears dangerous is only misunderstood. Sometimes the greatest heroes come in the most unexpected forms. Bruno lay down beside Toma, resting his head on his lap. The sun set in brilliant colors, painting the sky with warmth and hope. Toma stroked his fur gently, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. The dog who had been feared, misunderstood, and labeled dangerous had become a hero, protector, and a symbol of hope. "You are more than a dog, Bruno," Toma whispered. "You are a friend, a guide, and a hero, and I am proud to stand beside you." Bruno closed his eyes, content and calm. His extraordinary journey complete for now, the town would remember Bruno's bravery for generations. They would tell stories of the dog who had saved them, guided them, and taught them the true meaning of courage and loyalty. Toma knew that their bond would never break. Bruno had chosen him, and he had chosen Bruno. Together, they had faced the unknown, discovered extraordinary abilities, and shown that even in a world full of mysteries, courage, loyalty, and love could shine brighter than anything else. The stars appeared in the sky, twinkling softly. Toma looked at Bruno and smiled. The extraordinary dog had revealed the truth. What seemed dangerous could be heroic. What seemed ordinary could be extraordinary. And the bond between a human and his dog could change the world. Bruno wagged his tail, eyes reflecting the stars above. Toma knew that their journey was far from over. Adventures, discoveries, and mysteries awaited them. But one thing was certain: together they could face anything.